Hey, welcome back. It's the Marketer of the Day podcast. Joe Rare is here from level9virtual.com. And Mr. Joe is going to set us straight, get it right about this whole thing called building a team, delegating, outsourcing, having other people kind of build your business, run your business. That way you can take care of these scaling things. That way you can do the big picture. Now, Joe Rare is an underground serial entrepreneur, investor, outsourcing expert, father, and husband. He owns 6 companies, 5 wedding venues, real estate investment properties, and Joe is all about the entrepreneurial journey and selling and managing VAs remotely, recruiting, training, and most importantly, the freedom of time and money. So we're going to dive in, hear some fun and cool stories. So Joe, glad to be speaking with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate the invite.
And you're very welcome. And I have to admit, I'm playing dress up a little bit. I kind of have to be authentic. I saw you were like a outdoorsy hat kind of guy. And so I just wanted to sort of mirror you and subliminally kiss ass a little bit and kind of get on your level and have some fun. And so, tell me about what makes you stand out and unique. I know that you're Mr. Kind of Montana, big sky country, having the time to do to go to the ball game in the middle of the week. So what are you all about? What's your passion? What's your focus?
My passion really is building businesses with that create freedom. And I think, working with a lot of entrepreneurs around the world, they typically start their business with the intent to have freedom and they never actually achieve it. They end up working way more than they ever thought they would. Their business never produces the freedom and gives them the opportunity, whether they make great money or not. Freedom is really about time. And so the core passion that I have in life is my kids, my family, and being able to do the things that we want to do. So we spend a lot of time outdoors, everything from horseback riding and side-by-sides and snowmobiling in the winter. I'm heavy into that. Anything that we can do to get outside, to enjoy nature and all that, which requires time. And, my mission has always been that there's never a kids event, whether they're doing, volleyball or basketball or cheer or whatever they're doing. I never want to miss a thing. And the only way that you can make that happen is with time. And so business freedom, the freedom through outsourcing and creating processes and systems in a business that give me my time back, that's how I operate. So I don't touch anything that limits my lifestyle to be the way I want it.
I love it. And that's the way it should be, right? We're living in this enlightened age where it used to be if you're born and you're a son of a blacksmith or a horseshoer, you had to do that job, right? You had to work at the gas station your whole life. But now we have all this technology, all these things we can do remotely. We can just build these things out of thin air. And so you have me thinking about what is freedom, right? For you, like the number one goal is freedom. We all want it. And so you're saying that freedom is time. And I kind of struggle with this, right? Especially like when I was in my younger years, I wasn't sure what freedom meant, right? I was like, well, does it mean that the tasks I'm doing is what's easier, or I'm only doing the fun stuff, or I'm avoiding stress? And so what does that mean to you as far as like, okay, we want freedom, we want time, we want to be able to have this lifestyle, but sometimes you have to do the awkward or difficult or hard things. So can you tell us a little bit about that? About maybe in particular, if someone is resisting this idea of building a team and having employees and maybe getting outside of their comfort zone, you're saying that doing the hard things is maybe necessary for freedom.
Well, of course it is. And nothing comes easy. So, I get challenged a lot with the fact that, people go, well, it's easy for you to say, right? And it's like, well, yeah, hindsight's 2020. If I had made all the right choices the whole way along, I would have had all this way earlier. But I made all the mistakes. I did the grind. I worked and I opened, I had this big office with a whole bunch of glass doors and walls and fancy conference room and all that stuff, thinking that was the way we were supposed to build businesses. And I put, employees in seats and got them computers. And then the seats weren't good enough and they had to be ergonomic and all these other things. And it was like none of that actually created anything better than a remote lifestyle where you can work and live anywhere. You can have staff that's completely outsourced overseas or even local. It doesn't matter. I mean, outsourcing to me is the idea of getting things out of your workload that give you leverage back. And so I don't care if you're leveraging outsourcing to people here in the US, over to the UK, to the Philippines, to South America. I don't really care. What I want to do is I want to help people create processes and have them understand how to get things off their plate. And I wish I would have done it right the first 11 times that I didn't. And but that grind, all those lessons learned, that was the work. I had to go through that to figure out that, guess what, working 15 hours a day doesn't make me happy. It definitely doesn't make my wife happy. It doesn't, it's not good for my kids. And so luckily it happened while they were super young. And, I was just kind of back and forth to the office and doing all those things. But then it was like, well, wait a minute here. Well, now that they're going to start getting into activities, like, how am I going to be there and at the office? Or how am I going to be there and working with clients? I can't. It's got to be a team. It's got to be other people executing on my behalf. And that's leverage. That's the point in business, is leverage. And so it took a lot of challenge to get good at getting things out of my control. I can be a little bit of a control freak. So when I have to delegate something, the hardest part is just the letting go and seeing what happens. And, like, my lesson to people is to say, okay, if you were to step back and imagine the absolute worst thing that could happen if you delegate and it doesn't work out, how far back does it really set you? And on most cases, it's like a minor setback. And there's a lesson that'll learn, and the next time you do it, you're going to get it right. And so do all the hard things, go make all the mistakes, give your team latitude to go make mistakes on your behalf, and you will move faster and you can do so much more. And we could generate way more revenue if I focus on revenue stuff than if I'm trying to build a funnel and I'm trying to edit a video and I'm trying to, do, client relations and all that stuff. So leverage is the key.
I love it. And I agree with you completely. And so you're saying that we need to make these mistakes early, right? Don't make all the mistakes when you're 70, 80 years old. Make
Yeah,
the
true.
mistakes when you're 20, 30 years old. That way you can adjust course and you can enjoy what's on the other side of that. And I think a lot of us definitely have gone through the aha moment there of saying,
Yeah.
like, I am doing all these things. I am editing the video, and I know, like, I shouldn't be doing that. And sure, I've heard all the podcasts and the YouTubes and the Gary Vee and the Tim Ferriss and whoever telling me to not do it. But then once you actually have maybe these responsibilities, or once it stops working, you're like, I have no choice. And like, you remind me that, like, I didn't really take this all that seriously, like the delegatingness of it. And then I had a kid, and the next thing I know, I was like holding a kid during the bottle
Yeah.
days, when you have to just
Yeah.
like for like an hour, you have to like hold the dang bottle. And I was on my phone kind of typing in some tasks in Asana to my team because I wanted to get some things done. But I was just like, I physically can't be holding a bottle and be doing a thing on the computer, even for like 5 or 10 minutes. And you and I know 5 or 10 minutes, you sit down, you edit the video, it ends up being half an hour, ends up being an hour. So that's a really kind of helpful lesson. And so you're saying, so you delegate some tasks here, right? What's the worst that can happen? How far does it set you back? Hopefully just a few days, right? Hopefully part of your plan of having these processes is saying, like, hey, I'll assign something to someone and I'll give them something small and I'll check on their work, knowing that over time, like, the process will be improved. And so as far as you and your journey of, like, you built these companies, you've built these teams, like, were there any kind of turning points? Like I mentioned, like, I had like any kind of things where like your thinking changed in an instant just from some sort of stress event?
Well, yeah. So, I hired my first outsource team member, called a virtual assistant, in November of 2008. And I've had a team working with me every day since. And I ran a really successful e-commerce business for a number of years, almost exclusively outsourced. Like, they did everything. And then we had fulfillment done by a center, and I traveled and I did all kinds of stuff. So I kind of got the success of that early. And I think you mentioned Gary Vee. I think I fell into the trap of, like, the Gary Vee thing, like, have all these employees, have this big office, have multiple offices and all these things. And somehow I just got myself bogged down into building a business that was much more traditional, that was much more butts and seats. We all work in here, and hopefully clients come into the conference room, which never got used ever. And we would, hopefully make this office worth something. And at the end of the day, the business that I was operating out of that office failed. And it failed for a couple reasons. Lack of of revenue. Number one, yeah, we lost a couple of key clients, which basically just shrunk the business by 40%. So 2 clients were worth 40% of our revenue. We lost both of them in about a 2.5-week period. Devastating. Then business development, the person I had that was a partner, didn't go develop any new business. And so while I thought, hey, we're only a few clients away from getting caught back up, we'll be great. I ended up putting out debt, personal, to cover payroll, to cover expenses, to do all these things. Next thing you know, the debt's growing faster than the revenue. And I'm going, wait a minute, this isn't sustainable. I can't do this. And then it's like, wait, this is painful and this hurts. And when you start looking at the amount of debt that you're accumulating and that the people that you have in your ecosystem aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing to support the business, I was like, wait a minute, like this is all wrong. We can do so much more without people in this office. Close down the office and just outsource everything. And it'll lower my cost down 60, 70%. And then I can just go focus on the revenue generating activities. And so we closed down the business, basically restarted with one client, literally one. And I went from he was paying me $3,000 a month, $3,000 a month to $109,000 a month in 4 months. And the only thing that I did different was I said, hold on, I don't need all of this expenses. I don't need this big office. I don't need all this stuff. Let's sit down and do the only things that matter and focus on just those activities. So I have a VA doing this, I have a VA doing that, and a VA doing that, and I am closing deals. And as soon as we did that, boom. And then I went, wait a minute, that worked. What if we did it more, right? And then we doubled. And so we went from 109 to about 100, almost 220 in another like 3 months. And it was super fast growth. And then I said, well, wait a minute, could I do that in other businesses? And that's when I created the replication. And we can launch any business with this model and in 3-4 months be at 6 figures a month pretty easily. And I'm kind of hands off. And so that's
that is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems like, and there's so many cool lessons in there because like what I'm imagining as you're telling that story was like a big old complex ball of string in the present. And in the future, you're like, hey, here's the goal that I want, right? You want this number of sales minus this amount of expenses. And you were just saying like, well, hey, can we just make this all virtual? And the thing that doesn't change is the goal and what we're trying to accomplish. But any of the details in the meantime, we can be totally open to that. And I've watched some of your other content, some of your other videos, and I was really impressed with some of the things you said, like the lagging and the leading indicators, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're stressed about the business, you're like focusing on all these details. Well, what do I need to do, right? Make my 100 calls, and then I know like I'll have around this range of an output. And then and something else that you mentioned there was this idea of like once you've built the infrastructure, the system, then when you have this new business idea, you can kind of pluck one of the employees out and put them in another. Like I think you mentioned you had some kind of like a trucking company of all things.
Yeah,
and so when you have like the system, the communication, these things in place, you can kind of like move people around. And so, I mean, tell us about that because that seems super cool. Seems like you cracked the code there.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if it's a code or if it's just like, it's modeling the things that work. And, Tony Robbins always says like, success leaves clues, and all you gotta do is go pick up the breadcrumbs and the model exists. And so once we figured it out, I said, okay, with, my agency, this worked really well. Right. And not only did it work, but we were able to really, really grow it and make a ton of money. And then I said, okay, well, what if we did this for the virtual assistant, business? And then we did that, and that one exploded and eclipsed everything else we were doing. Then another opportunity comes along and it goes, well, okay, instead of trying to go build a new business, why don't we just do the exact same thing we did before, see if it works, and then we'll build the brand around the business. And so we went, for example, our data, services company, right? We do identity resolution. We built that business without a brand. We didn't know what we were doing. We were saying, hey, let's go see if we can get a bunch of people to buy this. And then we'll go build a brand and we'll build a website and we'll do all that stuff. But let's start with just a landing page. We'll let people purchase. We'll go talk to a bunch of people, see what we can get. People purchase, and we said, okay, this is viable. Now let's go do the exact same thing that we've done previously. But the cool part is that because we build the back-end systems in the companies the same, I can take an ops director from one company and move them into another, and their work is exactly the same. The way they manage everything is identical. The technology we use, the software, everything's identical across the board. And so you take somebody who does graphic design, or you take somebody who does, even fulfillment of services. The fulfillment process is going to be identical. Now, there might be terminology that's different. There might be a couple pieces of tech that we use that's a little bit different, but at the end of the day, their activity is going to be the same. The same 5-step client onboarding might be a couple nuances different, but it's basically the meat and potatoes of it is identical. And when we were able to do that, we could do this with anything. We could do this with an e-commerce business. We could do this with service businesses. We could do this with, anything. And so that became our back end model. And then we've replicated that over and over.
So you figured out your template, and then you say, well, now we can replicate this in this other areas and just change a little bit of the template here and there. And so it seems like there's, some people have like the entrepreneurial passion and spirit drive, and others don't. But if you do have that entrepreneurial kind of motivation, then you need to harness it for sure, right? Because there's a lot of ways to go wrong, and a lot of just stupid mistakes that you probably all have made or could make. And it's on you to decide, well, am I going to keep on with those mistakes or kind of have a better way? And it seems like some of what you mentioned so far is like, well, there's kind of the ego factor of having like the big fancy office. And then there's also kind of the, I don't know, like the falling in love with an unproven idea, right? And without testing the proof of concept, without trying it out. And I heard some story about you, and like you wanted to name something and you just said, oh, let's just call it Campground. Like, what is the name matter? We already made it work. And then you kind of made it fit retroactively. And so I think that's really helpful, right? It's just, they talk about beat up your idea and try it out, put it in front of people, see if it can work, see if it can make you money. But how do you know if you spread yourself too thin? If you say, oh yeah, we'll make this work, we'll make it work in this industry and that industry, even if it's all making money, can it come to a point where you're just like juggling so much of a spider web that you can't manage it?
100%. And I've gotten to that point a bunch of times, and then I realize it's because I'm involved. So if I remove myself from that business and there's other people operating it, then I'm not part of that spider web, right? And now the spider web doesn't exist because I'm not a part of it. And so I get to be in each of these businesses. The value is that I get to be a strategic advisor and an investor, which is kind of the cool part, right? So if you think about all these guys who are on different, they're on the board of directors for all these different companies, they get to be, the 10,000 foot, hey, this is the direction the company should go. Here's what we think that, should be happening in order to hit this long-term goal. And that's who I am. And I get to be that in all of these companies, and I get to check back in and, okay, well, how's everybody doing? Is everybody doing the things they're supposed to be doing? Okay, well, if we're not on the right path, then we need to change course. Here's all the things we should be doing. Okay, go do it. Right. And then we'll step back, and I'm not involved, and we'll check back in on their progress. But I'm not actually in the middle of it. I'm not getting involved with a bunch of clients. I'm not getting involved with a bunch of the everyday tasks and to-dos. I'm not a part of that. You guys are a part of that. You do that. And then if you're not on course, we'll correct it at the next check-in and so forth. And, again, building the team, though, building the processes, like everybody understands their expectations. Everybody understands what they're supposed to be doing. Everybody has their course, their direction. And they've got somebody else in there that's besides me, an operations person who's helping drive the big strategic goal of the company. And it's just like any other real business. The only difference is that I remove myself, other people do it, and then I get to do it multiple times. And so can I overwhelm myself? 100%. And it's happened tons of times. And then I go, okay, hold on. Where am I spending too much time? And a lot of times what we'll find out is that the problem is me. When I get in the middle of it, it causes an issue, and I become a bottleneck, because now all of a sudden people think like, well, I got to go talk to Joe before we make this decision. It's like, no. You guys have the freedom to make the decision. You guys go. All I'm going to do is I'm going to look from sky's view and say, okay, we're kind of veering off course. Let's get ourselves back on track. And so that's been my way of getting out of confusion and chaos. But it happens. And I think that it's just like this ebb and flow of life and of business. I'm somebody who can get bored pretty easily. And so then I all of a sudden want to like do some stuff, and I'll step in and get in everybody's way. So then I've got to like get the hell back out. But a big question that I always get is actually, could you scale your businesses bigger if you weren't doing as many? And the answer is probably yes. But I think what it comes back to is your personality and like what makes you happy. And building one single business doesn't make me happy. Like I like the change, the variation, the different challenges, the different problems. I like that kind of stuff. And so that allows me to be happy in the process.
That's very interesting to think about that. There's always that thought about like, what am I optimizing it, or am I getting it close to perfection? And you're saying that, well, like there's the size and scale and the profitability of your business, but there's also the timeline, right? There's
Yeah.
also the keeping yourself enthusiastic and keeping yourself creative. And if you were to just build just one, then over time you might lose your passion. It might become
100%.
something that you hate, and it might not be as bad of a scenario as what you said in the beginning of like building yourself another job, but you might be building this business that you resent. So it seems like it's important to have this self-awareness that you're talking about, right? You're saying,
Yeah.
number one, am I the bottleneck slash am I screwing this up? And then number two, am I no longer excited about this, and does something need to change there? And like in my imagination, I was kind of thinking like, as you were talking there, like usually you think of like like a team as like there's like you're in the middle and there's all the little kind
Yeah.
of the spokes going out of it, but you're saying be more of an investor or advisor. You go and talk to someone else who's the middle of the wheel
Yep.
and kind of adjust things there, but you're kind of removed from that. And so would you say, is there like a Grand Canyon to jump over in order to get there? Because like you think like, okay, you go from like, I'm part of it, I'm doing the work, and then I go over there and focus on sales and I start to kind of try people out, hand them off. How do we make that jump from being in the business to working on the business? How do we kind of go through all those ups and downs to get to the other side, to be an investor in our own company?
Well, the first thing is developing resources. You have to have financial resources in order to do it. So the tough part is what are you willing to give up? One challenge that small business owners run into is their inability to put money on the line and take less home in order to grow this bigger picture. And, again, anything on a long enough time horizon can be successful, right? But we are in very much a society where it's like right this second, if I don't pull the trigger today and it work tomorrow, this isn't it. And I mean, I have hired more people than you can imagine and had massive failures in the process. And we still fail when we hire people. But we understand, like, okay, this is a trial and error thing. Like, that person may not be the right person for that business. And there was a circumstance where I actually tried to push somebody into a role that wasn't the right role for them. And it ended up imploding. They ended up exiting the business. When we put the right person in place, all of a sudden, everything clicked. Everything worked and fired on all cylinders, and it was like super easy. So the first thing is make sure that you have some sort of financial resource that you're willing to invest to grow your business. Most people think of that, and the only thing that they're willing to do is put some advertising dollars on the line. But I'm like, human capital is unbelievably leveraged, right? You can get way more accomplished with human capital. And so I have a very simple process of how we do it, from how much revenue are we looking to generate and who's responsible for that revenue? Well, if we brought in more revenue, what does it require on the back end to fulfill the service, the product, whatever it is that we have on the back end? So if we increase revenue, can we fulfill in the back end? This piece right here is the part that everybody needs to fulfill first. You need to have somebody who is helping you fulfill, somebody who's helping you manage, so that you don't have to do that piece of it and you can focus on generating revenue. Then once you got that in, you've got that process, you've invested money there. Well, guess what? You want to make the money back? Go generate more revenue. So then you go sell. Well, guess what? If you're doing pretty good at sales, just bring in more salespeople, right? Salespeople are a dime a dozen. It's easy to find salespeople. So then bring in salespeople, train them on what you do, on how you do it, on why you do it, and so forth. And now maybe they're only 50% as good as you are. But 5 of them doing 50% of what you're doing is still way more than you at your best. So now all of a sudden, you're making more money. You're watching this process in the system of people over here, and all things are functioning without you losing, and having to invest your own, money back into it, right? You create this machine. So the gap to get going is really just, the first thing is just the financial resources. Then it's understanding which part of your business that you actually need to staff first. And then if it's, once you hit that revenue generating higher point, that is the fun part. That's the part where you get to kind of manipulate your own income, and hopefully knowing that the staff you put in place for fulfillment, they just fire. They work like clockwork. As you grow, you add a couple more, but they work like clockwork. And that becomes the fun part, because now it's like, I can just keep growing the business and the fulfillment runs itself. Oh, we need to add one more person there. Okay, no big deal. Okay, let's add 5 more salespeople, right? Now we break this over here and we got to add another person over here. And it just becomes this back and forth ebb and flow. And the more people you get, then you just need staff to manage the staff. And then that becomes that. And then how you really remove yourself is then, once you have staff managing staff, you need somebody to manage the actual process, the whole thing. So then they become the hub, everybody else is the spokes, right? And so it's not that grand of a leap. It sounds way more complicated than it is, but it's really take the first step and put people in place to get you out of the work and put you into revenue. That's it. Start there and the rest kind of falls into place.
Amazing. I feel like I need to clip that like 3-minute clip right there that you just said, and transcribe that and put it on the wall and like keep rereading it, because that is a really helpful step-by-step process. And I love the way you think as far as the kind of the manipulating all these kind of elements on the board and building something cool, because it seems like what everyone's trying to do is convert their time into money, right?
Yep.
That's a job. And you're saying like a better way is to convert start with the money, right? Convert your money into someone else's time that you're paying, which then converts back into more money. And then that's when things get crazy. And that's when you can start building things. But when you're just like one person building the Brooklyn Bridge with your 2 hands, like how far can you get doing that? And so you've given us so much to think about and so many cool stories and ahas, but how can Level 9 Virtual help us? What's the next step here? How do you come in all of our future entrepreneurial business plans?
Well, so there's really, I mean, there's a couple services that we offer, but 2 in particular that really help people get this step forward. The first one is our Projects on Demand service, which is if everybody were to sit down and go, oh my God, what's on my to-do list? What are the things my business needs to get done? Most of it doesn't need to be done by you, right? And usually we can take over most of that in our Projects on Demand service, which is quite simple. We call it our pods. And this is literally projects on demand. So you buy a block of hours, you can use those hours over a month, unused hours roll over. So you just get to keep reusing them. Every task imaginable, right? Whether it's graphic design and video editing and media buying and copywriting and website, mock-ups and what else are we doing? CRM and market automation and funnel builds and all that stuff. We do all of it. So as a business, you're like, oh my God, I got all these things that I need to get done. Outsource them. Like get them off your plate. And we do it in time blocks to where you can just go, hey, I just need to get this project on demand service. I'll submit 5 projects today. They'll work on them over the next few days. They're going to be complete. And now you're like, oh my God, I got all this stuff done. And then when you're ready and you say, okay, great. I want somebody to work in my business to help me with fulfillment, client relations, whatever it is, that's dedicated virtual assistants. And that's what we also offer. And so then you hire somebody that works directly for you. They can work 40 hours a week or they can work 20 hours a week. So part-time or full-time. And then you get, now you have actually an employee, a team member, somebody in your business that's working directly in your business every single day, side by side with you to support you in whatever, category of your business that they need to work with. And so that's how you begin building your team. Then you bring on another one and then you bring on another one. Simultaneously, all that mundane stuff, you keep submitting to Projects on Demand. Just keep submitting it to the pod and let them get all that crap done for you so that you could focus on training your staff, growing your team, growing your revenue, doing all that, knowing that on the backside, all the tasks are being done. And talk about a release. Like you want to talk about making things easy in life is when you know for a fact that I'm going to make money today. I'm going to make money tonight. Like we got cash rolling in, whether I show up or whether I don't. The business continues to grow. When we moved my family to Montana, I took an entire year off, or 10 months. I took 10 months off. And during that 10 months, our company doubled in size. And
Nice.
And when I mean took time off, I mean, I might've checked in once a month. I didn't work. And just that, I was like, okay, this is it. Like I thought I was sold into this idea of like not being a part of my business. Like this solidified the fact that this is a no-brainer and everybody can have it. Most people aren't willing to put forth the financial commitment to start building their team and putting the right people in place and really working through that. And another thing is like getting coaching. I'm going to be launching a coaching program that I'm going to work with just a few people, helping them do exactly this. You've got a business, you want to get out of it. Let's do it together. I'll help you and build the right team, put the right people in place. But again, it's putting those financial resources on the line. I have hired more coaches than I don't know, maybe more than anybody. I pay for everybody's stuff. If there's a coaching program, I want to see it. I want to know because they made a ton of the mistakes that I don't want to make. And if I could curb that and get ahead and go, cool, let me leapfrog over their whole 10-year challenge. I want to leapfrog over that. And then maybe that'll take me from, 20 to 50 million or from 50 to 100. Like that's what I want to do. I want to leapfrog over those challenges by using somebody else's knowledge. And so that's also becoming available.
Well, that's great. That's a great mindset to have, right? To leapfrog over everyone else's mistakes and to get out of your own head and to think in a different way. And it sounds like just don't make it so dang hard on yourself,
Yeah.
right? Like you have this ever growing to-do list and all these ideas and you kick yourself because you say, oh, there's never enough time for all these ideas. Well, and I love the get it off your plate metaphor.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what like a few years ago pushed me to finally take some of this outsourcing, delegating, hiring, whatever you want to call it, seriously, because I kept thinking like, oh, well, maybe I'll hire someone to do this new thing or someone permanent. And it was just like to get that little taste of like, hey, half of what I'm doing, 80% what I'm doing, someone else is doing it. Now I'm so excited. Now this like clears the cobwebs in the brain. And then all these other things like doing the customer service better or having the full-time person, like that can come later once it's been proven with this kind of projects on demand thing. And so how can someone investigate this? What's the next step here? Is it level9virtual.com or what's the call to action?
Yep. Level9virtual.com. You can also email me, Joe at level9virtual.com. It's pretty easy. If you want to just jump on a call with our team, one of the things I'm really proud of with our staff is we are not a hard sales type organization. So we don't do any like hard sales. What I want to do, I don't ever want to have the wrong client. I'd rather have people who are in the right stage of their business, the right stage of their life to be able to take the next step. And so one of the things that we do is we offer a consultative like discovery call. It genuinely is a discovery call. You actually get on with Dakota on our team. There's a button in the top right corner of the website and it's honest discovery. It's you share with us what where you are in your business, what your challenges are, what your tasks are, the things that you're like, I need to kind of get all this stuff done. We advise you on the next steps. Some of those steps might be like, hey, you should probably spend $200. Some of those steps might be like, you need to go figure this crap out yourself, then come back. Or it might be that, hey, you're ready to build a team and let's go ahead and put a team in place. And so everything in between, but we're not afraid to tell you when you need to go fix some things before you come to us, because it's not going to be a good fit in the long run. And what we want to do is that when we go to work with somebody and they're going to hire staff from us, they're going to work on, we're going to work on projects for them, that they're actually in the position that they're ready. Because if they're not, it's never going to help them get to where they want to be. And like we've built a good enough business. Like we don't have to take everybody as a client. And so what I'd rather do is I'd rather consult people and direct them where they should be going to make sure that they get the absolute best out of their business and out of their own time. And again, then creating leverage and then, attaining that freedom that, I so desperately love.
I love it. Well, this is very helpful and I can definitely see your passion. So the place to go now is level9virtual.com and click on that button on the top corner to schedule that consultation so that way you can figure out, well, are you in the right stage of your business for Level 9 Virtual's help, or do you need to do a couple of things in order to get ready? And as we're wrapping up our conversation here, Joe, it's soundbite time, right? You've already given us so many kind of sayings and lessons and helpful stories. But what I like to do when we get near the end to wrap things up is to ask for one final quote or moral or lesson. So what comes to mind as far as like a big punch at the end to make us excited about the future and make us wanting more?
Go fail fast. And I say that in the sense that The more mistakes you can make, the faster you can make them. You will eclipse your competition. You will move faster than everybody else if you're willing to just go try, go put something in play. I use it in the sense when we start a new business, we will go sell it before we have an actual service, like a fulfillable service yet. We'll just go sell it. And then when we're like, oh crap, somebody bought it. Okay, now we got to figure out how to fulfill this. And then we go do that. But go fail, go make the mistakes, go try, because most people are spending an enormous amount of time trying to create a logo, trying to perfect their website, trying to build the right funnel and have the right email campaign. And guess what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter until you actually have something viable. And so I tell people all the time, go and just try. Just keep putting stuff out there, put stuff out there. And the more that you do and the more you learn, because the market kicks you in the teeth and you screw up and you do something wrong, the more you learn faster, you will absolutely beat everybody else who's still trying to figure out what color their website should be.
Very awesome. Go fail fast and get in this habit of learning faster. Stop editing that logo. It might even be like a perfectionism, procrastination. We don't need that. We need to take some action, make some money, break a few things, build a business. And the next step, the next logical step to find out more about this is by going to level9virtual.com and see what's there and just become the person and grow your business into the business that it needs to be and should be. So Joe, it's been very wonderful, enlightening speaking with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you letting me come on and chat it up.